picking up on a few bits to confirm that I said last week, and a couple of things that got a bit not quite right, so we're going to make some corrections. So let's just quickly go through some of the questions that I said I would answer last week. One came from the week before that I didn't have time to answer, and a couple of members put up a question about the business grants and when they should be shown in the set of accounts. And I understand there's been some advice going out from various people and it's slightly different, but I went back and had a look at the various FRS documents. So we're looking at FRS 102 and FRS 105. Now, this was to do with when will the grant show in the company accounts and should they be accrued? Now, under FRS 102 section 24, and I'm going to read this out so that I don't get it wrong. As you know, limited companies must report under the accruals method of accounting. And under the accruals module, the grants relating to revenue, which is what this is because it's an income revenue account, are recognised as income on a systematic basis over the periods in which the entity recognises the related costs for which the grant is intended to compensate. Now, these business grants are compensating for loss of earnings over a period of time, and they covered a span of about, say, 3 months or 6 months or however long they covered. So under FRS 102, you have to show that as an income item to offset against your reduced expenses. So depending on when you got the grant and when your year end is, you can accrue the grant. If it runs over a period of a year end, I think you can split it between the 2 years. If it falls within the current year, then you're going to cover it over the period of time that's covering your lack of expenses. So there have been a couple of grants and various other bits and pieces going out. If the grants are made for losses that have already been incurred and for which you don't have any forward costs to offset against, it must be recorded in the period in which the grant was received. So I think that was a query. Should it accrue or should it be done when it was received? Well, as I read section 24, it should be done on a accruals basis. So hopefully that sorts that one out. But if anybody can make more sense out of section 24 than I did, then please come back to us. A couple of non-COVID things first. Companies House have sent out an email this week. I don't know if anyone else has picked it up. If you get Companies House emails, they are changing the way you access their company search facilities. At the moment, it is something called the web check service, where you go in and maybe you put in information about a company and details about a company, and the information comes back. Now that is moving over to a new system from February 21, so this coming February, and it's now going to be called a Companies House service. And I've had a quick look at the beta version of it, which is available, and it seems to have a much broader scope of searches that you could put in, and it looked a lot cleaner and easier to find. So I followed a link, but I went on to Companies House. I put a search for company check and the new screen came up. So hopefully that will make it a bit easier to get some information out.
Yeah, Jackie, I think I mentioned on previous programs that I've been going along to the virtual meetings with Cardiff, and putting this out. There was a white paper out. They wanted to offer more. Everybody wanted more from them. I think, unfortunately, we're probably going to have to start paying for this shortly because they're increasing the amount of services they're offering. So we'll have to see how that works. At the moment, your people who have got a practice license with us and are using our AML online get linked into the Companies House web check, which is the basic: what is the company name, who are the directors, etc. And we will be working with them to see if, to make sure that we can continue when this expands, so that all of that information is filtered down into AML online. But we're sort of working with them at the moment. They're getting their own act together first before worrying about anybody else's. But we are, just to keep everybody informed, we are working closely with them on that.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the first announcement I'd seen. There's quite a lot coming out from Companies House, but that was, I think, the important one that will affect people. So that's first change coming around in February. So that's all right. The other thing that we are really getting to the stage now where if you and your clients haven't already started seriously looking at this is the end of the EU transition period is rapidly heading towards us at the end of December. From the 1st of January, everything changes. And I've started to get some queries coming through from through member services about what's going to happen with VAT and all other sorts of things from the 1st of January. Now, I have covered what's happening with goods coming into the country. So when you're buying things, when you're importing things, and there is an article going out, I think, in the next newsletter on how that works and all the various changes that are happening. And then I'm hoping that at the end of November, I will get an article out to you on what happens when you're selling abroad. We're pretty certain we know what's happening now, but I just want to make sure that there are no changes coming out. So watch out for the newsletters coming out because there will be an awful lot of information going out. I know we're covering it on at least one slot in the summit. So there's a lot going to be coming out to you for that. But the sort of things that at the moment you need to be looking into, if you haven't already picked this up, is if you have clients who employ people from other EU countries, the rules and regulations for employing people are going to change. Now, as bookkeepers, we're not necessarily involved in that, but if you're running payroll for them, you will need to make sure that they are properly licensed workers and that your clients have got the relevant licenses that they need to be able to bring in workers from the EU. And the other big change that you need to look at that I've picked up so far, apart from all the VAT changes and the tariffs and the imports and things, is if you have clients who are perhaps lorry or coach drivers and they travel across to the EU, there are new rules and regulations for that. It looks as though those of us who are travelling privately across to the EU aren't going to be affected too much. They said we'll still be able to travel as we do now. So, you know, normal passports, but probably no visas or anything like that. So there's a lot coming up for the next couple of months on transition. If you have clients who are involved in dealing with the EU, then please do make sure that you're up to date on that.
Oh, we're getting a lot of that at Summit, so get your tickets booked, get in there. There'll be quite a bit from BEIS, B-E-I-S, all about that. So, yeah, good place to get the info.
Okay, just looking quickly at the questions and answers. I'll pick up on those questions in a moment. Right, okay, job support scheme. We had some questions last week on the job support scheme on the devolved countries, so Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. And I said I would look into it and come back with some confirmation. Now, the job support scheme is paid to employers who fall within either the open or the closed system. And we were looking at the various tiers because in England we have 3 tiers. Tier 2 is where perhaps you're partially closed and you can't, or even tier 1, and you don't have enough work to bring your employees in. You're into the open scheme, and the closed scheme are for those businesses who have legally been asked to close and shut down to a certain extent by the government. Now, in England, that's tier 3. But of course, in Wales, as somebody pointed out last week, there aren't any tiers, and Scotland have 5 tiers. Now, I think regardless of the tier that you're sitting in, it depends whether your business is closed or partially open. So if your business has been forced to close, for example, hairdressers and that sort of thing, then you fall into the closed scheme, regardless of where you are and regardless of what tier you're sitting in. If your business is open but working limited hours, you then fall into the open scheme, and then you can claim, you have to remember your employees have to work 1 day a week, and then you can claim a percentage of their non-worked hours from the government. We did say last week that we will put up the slides that I used last week. Those are now up on our COVID-19 hub. If you go onto our website and search under resources COVID-19, just underneath the basic introduction at the top of the job support scheme is a link that says, I think it says link to our JSS presentation. If you link on that, you will be able to download the slides from last week, and you need to go through it. Just run it through as a normal presentation and all the bits will flash up. Now, what I've done is I've added a lot more to those slides because obviously I'm not talking over them to explain what they are. So I put a lot of information. answered a lot of the questions that came up last week. So it's quite a lengthy process, but do go online and download it for those that you want. I have had some queries this week for that. Just to pick up on something I didn't mention last week that I've been reading up on, that's those businesses who are partially funded, publicly funded. So that's people like my early years group, anyone who's dealing with early years where you're partially funded. That's the group we've been working with almost since the start of lockdown now. A very similar thing applies. You can't claim anything for the funded section of your work, but if you are partially closed or you need to be giving people part-time work, you're going to have to do very similar calculations to the ones that you did for the furlough scheme. So anybody in that position, if you need some help, bump me an email over and we'll try and get that sorted out. And if we need another meeting with anyone in that situation, for those of you who are not involved, if you think you've got issues with private trading businesses, it's proving to be nothing as complex as those that are partially funded, publicly funded. So, you know, give me a buzz or give me an email if anyone needs some help on that. We were talking last week about, I had a query about people who are paid fortnightly or weekly rather than weekly or monthly, and what's going to happen to that. The eligibility for the job support scheme, that's either open or closed, means that you have to have submitted one RTI between the 6th of April 2019 and the 23rd of September 2020. Now that's the cut-off date for new employees. So if you have a new employee that started in September, but you hadn't submitted an RTI till the end of the month, they're not going to be able to be part of the job support scheme, and you're not going to be able to claim for them. And I think that date has always been linked to the date that the Chancellor made the announcement. There is no forward period on that. So from the day the Chancellor made the first announcement, if you didn't have somebody who was already on an RTI submission, then you couldn't claim for them. And I think, therefore, those of you who are on 4 weekly payments, I think you've just got to stagger your submission claims around those 4 weeks. So once we get more detail, and there's still nothing up on there yet about the claims and the portal date opening, hopefully that will become clear when we get to it. Other questions that have come through asking about voluntary training. Now, if you've got some people who are doing some training in their non-working hours and they're doing this voluntarily, then you can, as I understand it, you can claim for the job support scheme, but you have to top their wages up to at least minimum wage. Or you can treat the training period as worked hours and pay them their full rate for the worked hours, and then claim the rest as non-worked hours. Still waiting for an update on parental pay. So what happens with statutory maternity, adoption, all the parental pay, we're still waiting for an update on that. Nothing new on that. I did pick up one interesting thing on the grant system. The JSS system. That's tucked away in the corner of the details. And I'm actually going to read it out to you. It's in the HMRC details. Business premises required to close by local public health authorities as a result of a specific workplace outbreak are not included in the job support scheme. Now, that's all it says. And I think you're going to have to sort of read between the lines and behind that to see what that means, but I thought it would be worth mentioning it. So we might need to do a little bit more information on that, but it is specifically aimed at businesses who are closed down by local public health authorities. Agents can make a claim for job support scheme in exactly the same way. And sorry, I think we do have a date. I think the portal opens on the 8th of December. So we're going to do the RTI for the end of November, and then you'll be able to claim shortly after you've done your RTI. So I think The JSS portal opens on the 8th of December. Somebody asked last week about hospitality areas, hospitality businesses, and do they get extra grants? Well, I went through this again this week. And again, it's one of those HMRC, which I think is a bit vague, and they're trying to be fairly open, which means it's impossible to understand. And for those in high alert areas, so in England, I think that is tier 2, they can claim up to £2,100 per month if they're in the hospitality sector. And in tier 3, so the higher tier, there is a £3,000 grant whether they're open or closed. Now, I understand that the 2,100 may be over and above any other grants that are available to general businesses. So again, you need to go through that, have a look at what it is. I tried to understand it completely, but it's one of those that was a bit beyond me today. And I've got 2 quick more. The SAYS grant, the new SAYS grant. Now, actually, I have to say, this was not me that picked this up. I picked this up from Martin Lewis's show last week. I actually went on to see what he was saying about it all, and he picked up something that I have found today. When we did SAYS 1 and 2, you had to prove that for the period of the grant that either your income had gone down or your expenses have gone up. Now, I agree with what Martin Lewis said on his Money Show, that the wording for SAYS 3 is that you have to be currently actively trading, but impacted by reduced demand due to COVID, or have been previously trading but are now unable to do so. So what he was saying, and as I understand it from the detail, is that you have to have your income has to be reduced, but not necessarily your expenses increased. So that's going to narrow down possibly those who can apply for SAYS 3. So please do watch it. We've spoken a lot about the ethics of who should apply if you're not sure about your grant, but it specifically now says that you have to have been impacted by reduced demand. And I've been looking at the last question we had last week was about directors and should they be able to claim under the job support scheme. And again, I went back and I thought, oh, well, let's go and see what Martin Lewis says. And he says that because they're on PAYE, yes, they can claim, which is what we said last week. So that was fine. However, I still maintain that if you are a sole director and you're running a business, you are going to find it very, very hard to justify the hours that they are working or not working. So please be quite careful if you get involved in those grants. It was easy when we were completely shut down, because we knew that nobody was working and they couldn't claim if they were doing any form of income generating work at all. The minute we got into flexible furlough and job support scheme, that whole thing became far more complicated. So not as much, but still quite a lot to go today. So let's look at what you're saying.
One thing about the catering and hospitality, Jackie, I think one of the things that people are asking last week, and unless I just missed what you were saying, is if you are, as a company, are a supplier to the catering and hospitality trade, but therefore you can't work anymore because there's nobody to buy from you or for you to sell to, is there any allowance made for that? And at the moment, there doesn't appear to be. I
don't think there is. It is very specific that it is the hospitality and leisure industry. So it's things like hotels, bars, restaurants, leisure centres and all those sort of things, hotels, bed and breakfast and all those. I haven't seen anything that says it's for suppliers unless you can actually count yourself as being in the hospitality. But I think that's something that, you know, we do need to find out. But unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that one still, Gary.
I think there are a couple of things that have come out in the news this week that actually not everybody is suffering, that although we probably don't all want to admit to this, but there are companies that are doing well by being there during COVID. Hornby, Scale Extra, the trains and everything. I was just saying, they've gone back into the profit for the first time, I think, for about 10 years, because everybody's at home with their children, so they're buying a Scale Extra set or a railway set. So that's, well.
Yeah, I got that on our local news last night, because they're not far from us, actually, the Hornby Centre.
All right. And one of the big ones I thought, which was really good, and I've heard there's another company done this as well, I forget who it is, but Dunelm, who furloughed a lot of their staff, took furlough payments. They've had such a good year. What they've done, they've paid the government back all of their furlough money. So
Wow.
That's a really good gesture, I think. So
Yeah.
It does happen out there. I have to say that as far as our team, as you know, Jackie, and we, as I've told people many times before, we got to the 18th of March. We heard that this was coming. Everybody at the office upped computers, upped their telephones, went home, started to work from home, and we've kept ourselves well and truly away from everything. Unfortunately, this week, 2 of our team, even though they're not communicating with the rest of their co-workers, have tested positive. And, you know, this is because obviously households are still mixing, because some of the household had to work. They weren't allowed to work from home and various other things. So we're hoping that they're going to get better soon. They didn't sound very well when we spoke to them. Not overly serious, just heavy, and just not nice, really. So we're hoping that that's the way it stays. I must admit, I'm getting pretty nervous by it all. You know, people are still wandering around a little bit blasé about it all. So I'm not sure which way it's going to go. And certainly Christmas is a big question for everybody. What's going to happen? What can we do? What can't we do? And the fact that we 1st of November on Sunday is frightening, really. You know, we're only a few weeks away. But anyway, let's all be positive. Just please, all of you out there, be very, very careful. Don't forget that this thing can just catch you out without you knowing about it, and try not to encourage it, please. We have got the Bookkeepers Summit coming up very shortly. I am pleased to say that we've got a record number of you booking for this. I think last week we were just about 25, 30 short of the 600 mark. We've now burst through the 700 mark. So this is going to be a major, major conference, the biggest thing to hit bookkeepers for a long time. And, you know, there's a lot going on there. So if you can manage to get there, please do. The other thing to remember is, although it runs from Tuesday the 17th, Wednesday the 18th, we're probably skipping a little one now into Thursday the 19th. And of course, Jackie and I will be here on the 20th. You can look at this for up to 3 months. So register, get your name down. If you can't stand to sit by your computer for 3 solid days, don't worry about that. You can look at it later. We've actually got 12 keynote speeches, and that's from running a business, hiring staff, harnessing technology, changing career, how to charge more. We've got technical workshops, updates to VAT, payroll, CIS, personal and business tax, IR35, the list goes on. We've got 4 big panel discussions with some leaders from the profession talking about that. We've got 8 training rooms. Now, it's very difficult to explain a room when it's virtual, but apparently you go into a room and you mix with other people who want to hear the same. So it's a bit like being at a virtual college. And you know, we've got a lot of stuff in there, all about our current syllabus. So those of you who are students and want to know a bit more, those of you who are members want to know about level 4, that's covered as well. And we're getting quite a big turnout of people who are currently AATQBs, because obviously that is all about data processing. And most of them want to say, well, I just don't want to process data. I want to do the bookkeeping work for it. And our syllabus obviously allows them to do that. So people are looking to come across and get that additional training. So they'll be there. We've got 10 software demonstrations. So the big software companies are going to come in and talk to you. Again, you don't have to see any of this that you don't want to. You can come in and see one bit of it. You can come in and see all of it. And you can look at it again and again and again for the next 3 months if you want to. And the other great thing is that you'll be able to see who else is on at any one time, who else is listening to what you're listening to. You'll be able to have a chat with them. You'll be able to organize meetups with them. So it's not quite face-to-face, but, you know, it's as close as it gets. So please remember the summit. That whole week is Global Bookkeeping Week, which I think now is in its, 15th year, something like that. And it's just getting bigger and bigger. And on the Wednesday, 18th, you're probably fed up with hearing me saying this, but that's Raise a Cup Day. That's when we all raise a cup and say cheers, or glass, cheers to bookkeepers, because you've been magnificent. Now, I've been speaking to a couple of members recently who are coming forward for awards or doing whatever, and they're just constantly praising their teams And I'm listening to what they're saying about the lengths that they've gone to look after their clients, etc. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, I must tell you very quickly a funny story. One of our members, and I'm not having a dig at accountants, but she said that her client said to her, right, I need to go to my accountant because he's got to sort out my furlough. And he's got a, some of his team there are doing the bookkeeping at the moment, so I'm going to switch to the accountant. So she wasn't very happy. But after 4 weeks, he's now come back to her and he said, oh, I don't think they've done it right. They haven't claimed what I want. Can you do this for me? And she rang me up and said, what should I do? Should I tell him to go sling his hook? And I said, no, never cut off your nose to spite your face. But, perhaps negotiate on how much he's going to pay you. So she came back to me a little while later and said, well, I normally charge £35 an hour. He slipped up and told me the accountant was charging £75 an hour. So I said, well, let's split the difference and I'll charge you 55. He said, well, shall we call it 50? She said, you can call it what you like, but on your invoice, it's got to say 55. So the client is back. The client is happy. There wasn't much wrong, actually, as it turns out, but, every little bit counts. So she was really pleased. I did ask her if I could use her name, but she said, no, not your Nelly. But anyway, okay, so that's great. The other big news this week, of course, is that we have already announced some of our Lucas. These are, some of those, they came out on Wednesday. So I'm going to run through the people that are up for this particular set of Lucas, and I'm about to get the latest hot off the press Luca nominations for the other categories as well. So bookkeeping software of the year, we've got Free Agent, QuickBooks, Sage Accounting, VT Transaction Plus, and Xero. Payroll software of the year, Bright Pay, Free Agent Payroll, MoneySoft, Sage Payroll, QuickBooks Payroll, Xero Payroll. We've got expenses and document management of the year, Auto Entry, HubDoc, Receipt Bank, Xero Express. Tax and accounts production software of the year, BTC Software, Tax Calc, Tax Filer, VT Final Accounts, Xero Tax. Practice management software of the year. Now, this is growing exponentially with our members at the moment. Everybody seems to be having a piece of software to help them manage their practice. Accountancy Manager, Practice Ignition, Center, CSENTA, Tax Filer, Xero Practice Manager, and Zoho. Cash flow forecasting software of the year, Fathom, Float, Fluidly, Futurally. They like the F's here, don't they? And SIFT, just to prove my theory wrong. Add-on application or service of the year, Go Cardless, HMRC app, Sage University, Sage VAT Center, and Zoom. And I queried, is Zoom an app? And they said, yes, it is, because you added on something. So, okay, we'll see how that goes. Personality of the year. Now, at the risk of some people here getting a little bit big-headed on this one, we've got Chrissy Applin, Ian Holloway, Jackie Mount, I think this says, Rishi Sunak, so no pressure there, and Trent McLaren. Don't forget, these people have all been nominated by you, not by me. I have nothing to do with this, and I tell you every year, I don't know what's happening here till I open the envelope. And this year, virtually still, but I am going to be opening an envelope, and it's going to be a surprise, as much a surprise to me as it is to the winners. Business Bank of the Year, Barclays, Metro Bank, NatWest, Royal Bank of Scotland, Starling Bank, and Tide. Interestingly, the virtual banks have not taken over completely. We've still got the traditionals there, the Barclays, the NatWest, the Royal Bank. They're still getting good votes from you. Friendliest software of the year, we've got Bright Pay, Free Agent, QuickBooks, Sage, and Xero. So I think that's all that we've got on that one at the moment. And so we're looking good on that. I was filling out a form for somebody the other day and trying to talk to them about how much we've been doing for our members. This is episode 86 of ICB TV, which is fantastic. We've actually also done 138 branch meetings this year, and I think it's 115 of those since lockdown. So I hope you think we're doing our bit and we're trying to help out. There's a newsletter coming out. I think it's coming out this afternoon, so please have a look at that. There's all sorts of bits of information in there. Jackie, before I go and roll the drum and tell them about the rest of the Lucas, do you want to start answering some questions?
Yeah, there's just one come up about the summit, Gary, from Helen Wright. When do you plan to send out the delegate backpacks to ticket holders?
Monday. That was a quick answer, wasn't it? I didn't even ask.
Quick answer. Well done. Okay.
I've got somebody opposite me telling me the answer to that one. That was good. Yes.
On a few questions then. Before I go, there's a couple down here. Terry Ram, thank you, Terry. Terry's put some information up on our questions about the grants, the business grants on rateable values. Those figures are actually in the presentation that I did last week. So if you want those, rather than me go through them again, then pick that up from the presentation, please. So let me get rid of that one. Right, so let's have a look at the text. Jackie, I was wondering if you knew how we will run the calculations for JSS for a monthly pay rather than a weekly paid employee. For example, in November, there are 21 working days. Are we to claim the same as CJRS claims for the number of working days in the month rather than 4 weeks? I hope this makes sense. Yes, it does make perfect sense, but I don't think I've got an actual answer, because until the detail comes out, the calculator comes out, I'm not quite sure what the period is. Now, it's only going to be the first period. If your payday is the 21st of November, you're going to have to claim from the 1st to the 21st, because that's the information that will go into your RTI. And then presumably for the rest of the time, you will claim from the 22nd of November till, say, the 21st of December. So that's going to be a full month. So I think with the CJRS claims, as long as you have your calculations there and you can justify them and they are correct, then I don't think that there will be a problem, Shelley, sorry. Nicola Payne has come back. Hi, Nicola. I'm trying to work out holiday entitlement for some varied hours workers. Obviously, I need to count back 52 weeks to get the average hours. Do I include the furlough period as worked? And if so, do I use 80% hours or the equivalent 100 hours? If you're working at holiday entitlement, I think it's only over the worked hours, but Nicola, I might have to come back to you on that one. Holiday. Let me make a note of that, because I think holiday entitlement is based on worked hours. So it may be that the furlough, I'm not quite sure what happens on the furlough there. Sarah Douglas, re-EU workers, this is to do with the transition that I spoke about earlier. If you do payroll, would that job be the responsibility of the employer HR and not the payroll bureau provider? Where do we stand within our practice license? Thanks in advance. Who is responsible for, you see, I think it's the employer that's responsible really for making sure that they have the correct paperwork in place to employ these people. If you are asked to do it, I'm not quite sure where the responsibility lies there, Gary.
Well, I think it's wherever the employer is based, so obviously it doesn't matter where the employees are, but I think that as a member, you need to catch up with that. We're not going to start turning around and taking that ability away from you. I think it's just part of your, what I would call CPD. You catch up with it, listen to what we have to say. I mean, if you think about your practice license, nowhere on your practice license does it say you can do furlough, but you're doing it because obviously that's what you do and you have to catch and keep up with it. So I think it's one of those. It's probably a certain amount of watch this space. But
my view would be that if you are running a payroll for EU workers, I think you should at least check that all the documentation is correct before you process the payroll. I don't think you should process the payroll purely on the client's say so, because again, if they're not entitled to work here, you shouldn't be running a payroll for them. So whether or not you do it, I think you have to be absolutely certain that the paperwork is in place and they are legally able to work here.
Is there a moratorium on when a person will not be able to work here? I think we are, although we're still part of Europe, aren't we? As such.
Yes, what's happening from next year is there's going to be a point system, and as I was reading, it's going to be based on I wrote this down, sorry. It's a points-based immigration system, and employers have to be a licensed sponsor to hire workers. Job, salary and language requirements will come in from the 1st of January. So again, I think they are tightening it up, and we know there's been loads in the news about EU workers coming over and on what they're entitled to do and what they're, the working regulations. So I think that's something we'll try and follow up on later.
Yeah, and I think it's something we need to mention to Bays if they haven't already thought about it. I'll mention that to our team who are organising the speakers at conference, because we need to get that sorted, certainly.
There's been quite a lot coming out from Bays recently at the end of the transition period. So I haven't seen that. I've been reading most of what's come out, but I haven't actually seen anything specific on that. Usha has said, Jackie, if a company decides to bring in all staff from furlough, but the directors decide to work limited hours to avoid redundancies, can this be claimed under Open JSS, please? I think you are going to have to possibly prove that they're working, yes, to avoid redundancies. So you can bring your staff in and furlough the directors. That is not a problem, because they are employed. They are employees of the company. The fact that they're directors doesn't really have a say. As long as you can work out the actual hours that they're working and the hours that they're not working, then there's no reason why you shouldn't claim for that under JSS. So they're voluntarily taking almost like a pay cut, working less hours, so they can keep their staff on, which to a certain extent I think is really good. There's a quick one while we're talking about JSS claims from Sue Raisin. Good afternoon, Sue. In your opinion, which is the best way to process the JRS JSS claims when received? Offset against gross pay or recorded as a grant? The latter is how an accountant wants to deal with it. Is there a proper way? I have to say your accountant is correct. It has to be recorded as income. Do not offset it against gross pay, because your gross pay is still there and you are claiming that as an expense. So grant income must be shown as an income item, gross. So yeah, the accountant's got it right in this instance.
Good.
Right, let's just get rid of those.
Question there about what's in the hamper. Well, I hope the food's going to be good, she said. And who's that come from? That's come from Judith. Yes. I think that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, as they say. I had hoped we'd get a gin and tonic in there somewhere, but apparently we can't. But I don't know what's in the hamper, actually. A few surprises, a few freebies from the various sponsors and various things, as always, I would think. Yeah, I'm going to miss that food we have. It's surprising, really, over the years. We've had lots of comments about the food we've given. Everybody liked the fish and chips in a basket. I remember the first time we did the QE2, they thought they were being really trendy at coffee break by putting the milk in little mini bottles. And we had so many complaints from people saying, why don't they give us a jug? We went for steak, and quite a nice steak most years. And then we thought, well, perhaps with everybody going slightly off red meat, we should go for chicken. Nobody liked the chicken. And when we had the fish, we almost had a walkout because everybody ate the vegetarian instead. So the vegetarians, we didn't have enough to give them, so the kitchen had to go back and recook everything, and get it all out. So yeah, I don't think deciding what you're going to eat and sending it at the back is probably going to work. It is a shame.
And Christy Aplin's there. Hi, Christy. I would be interested to know the answer with the holiday pay very hours. Yeah, I will get something out on that, Christy, and Nicola and anyone else. I'll try and get something out on that one as well. And Shelley has come back saying, can you confirm if an employer can now top up an employee pay for JSS and also holiday top-ups, the same as CJRS? Shelley, yes, you can. It's in the guidance. Employers can top up over and above the 5% that they're expected to pay. So the answer to that one is yes, Shelley. I've got Chris's son, so I can get rid of that one. Okay.
I think the time has come to announce the nominations for the other Lucas. So I'm going to quickly run through these. So Student of the Year, Anish Jose, who's actually a self-study, he's not with a college. Elizabeth Carter, not a relation as far as I'm aware, Training Link. Joanne Crompton, Training Link. And Marie Phillips Prescott, Ideal Schools. Congratulations to all of you for being nominated. Apprentice of the Year, we have Curtis Craig. Now, he's with the Atomic Weapons Establishment, so I don't think anybody's going to argue with him. But anyway, Madison Cooper, who works for Whitley Stimson, which is a firm of chartered accountants, and she's studying through Dudley College of Technology. And Sophie Lampitt, who works for the City of Wolverhampton Council, and she is studying through MBKB. So those are the apprentices. The Tutor of the Year this year, we've got Angela Capling from Training Link, Jill Tucker from Training Link, and Esther Petronovich from Ideal Schools. Employed Bookkeeper or Team of the Year. Too many of our people who put in a nomination here felt that they wanted their whole team to be covered because it's very difficult to pick out an individual. So we've got the team at another answer. We've got Keith Elliott from Stephen Milne Chartered Management Accountants and Stephanie Partridge from Bookkeepers in Buckingham. Employer of the Year, Another Answer Limited, Bookkeepers in Buckingham and Stephen Milne Chartered Management Accountants. Good to see the accountants joining in with this. This is great fun, fantastic. And I take back all I've said about accountants, at least until after the Lucas. Apprenticeship Training Provider of the Year, AWE, which, as I say, is the Atomic Weapons Establishment. Dudley College of Technology, or Dudley, if anybody wants it in that way. MBKB and Riverside Training Spalding Limited. Small Training Provider of the Year this year, eCareers, Kaplan, Premier Training, Study Online. Large Training Provider of the Year, Ideal Schools, Open Study College, and Training Link. Well done to everybody. Right, now, New Practice of the Year, CLK Books, Claire Kendall from Lincolnshire, EBG Financials, Elia Gushoni from London, MB Accountancy and Bookkeeping Solutions Limited, Maurice Leach, Oxfordshire, TKI Bookkeeping and Accounts, Tracy Irvine, Monmouthshire. That's a good spread. Small Practice of the Year, Adds Up Bookkeeping and Accounts. That's Louise Woodhouse from Lincolnshire. X Bookkeeping, that's EXE Bookkeeping and Payroll Services, Jay Snell from Devon. LJM Bookkeeping, Lara Manson, Lincolnshire. Serenity Bookkeeping, Helena Hasty from Devon. And YVB Bookkeeping Services Limited, Yvonne Boddy from Leeds. And the Large Practice of the Year, Complete Office Support Bookkeeping Limited, Karen Garatli from Manchester. Evla Limited, EVLA Limited, that's Eva Zabo from West Sussex. Joe Wood Virtual FD, Joe Wood from Kent. And Promar International, Stephanie Weldon, and Promar hail from Cheshire, although they are a national organisation. And then the one that causes most fights in the ladies afterwards, Branch of the Year, Gloucestershire, East and West Sussex, Lincolnshire and North Yorkshire. Branch Chair of the Year, Catherine Pyman, Chair of North Yorkshire, Claire Allen, East and West Sussex, Lucy Brown, Lincolnshire. And I think that's about it. So all those of you, congratulations for being nominated. We've had some anonymous nominations, and we've had some people who put their name forward. We've had some very, very interesting stuff coming forward. As I say, I stay well out of the way so that I don't lose all my friends and influence once the answers come out. And I will be opening those at the Luca Awards ceremony. and then we'll learn who are the winners at exactly the same time. But really, really big congratulations to all of you. We'll be doing some social media on this shortly, so look out for your name, and please, everybody, like the people that you think should be winning these awards, or just like everybody just because they've tried hard and they put their name forward. It's quite something to put your head above the parapet, and I think this year we've had a particularly big input, and we are getting some very, very special applications. So every year I say this, it's getting bigger and it's getting better, and this year it's getting bigger and it's getting better, and it really is. And so, yeah, please give them the applause that they need if you see it, and join us on the night. It won't be quite the same because we're not together, but I know some of the branches and some of you are taking your staff into a socially distanced meeting somewhere. So I'm hoping that we see some posh frocks and some tuxedos, and a few people having a nice glass of bubbly and awaiting the outcome of that. And I'm waiting for my instructions. I'm told it's going to be good. I don't know too much about it at the moment, but that sounds great. Jackie, how are we doing on questions?
Yeah, we've got a few more to come in. Some on the chat line. Janita Patel says, if the current employee hasn't been furloughed before, can we still claim for JSS in months after November? Yes, you can. That was the one that I actually got wrong last week. Then we corrected it towards the end when somebody very kindly came up on the chat line to say, no, you can. You don't have to have been furloughed at all. They do have to have had an RTI submitted prior to the 23rd of September. It's when we come through to the end of January, and for the job retention bonus, that's the one that they have to have been furloughed for in order to be able to claim the £1,000. So hopefully that's clear, Janita. Thank you very much. Now, here's one from Carol. Carol does send in some lovely queries. Carol Webb. This is probably one I'm going to throw out there to everybody else. Now that HMRC have confirmed that giving gift vouchers in lieu of staff Christmas parties is not allowed to be included in the £150 tax-free allowance, I have an interesting one to try and interpret. If the employer sends a hamper to staff and they have a virtual party where the hampers are opened, can that be allowable under the £150 staff entertainment allowance? I'm going to have to look at that one, Carol, because I have absolutely no idea. And if anybody else wants to throw their hat into the ring on that one, please feel free. Sarah's come back and said, back on the JSS, if the employer wants to pay more than 5% for the unworked hours, will that reduce the government contribution of 61.67%? No, I don't think it does. I think what you're doing is you're contributing a little bit top up towards the bit that the employee would otherwise not be paid. So that's and Lucy Brown says 6 shortlisted Lincolnshire Lucas. So excited. Well, Lucy's taking over the world, so well done, Lucy, and your area.
Yeah, it's we've had a lot of activity this year, and as I say, with over 130 branch meetings this year so far, the branches have been really filling a gap in people's lives, which is great. I know everybody's been very busy, and so many meetings that I go to nowadays, we've got children roaming around in the background, and the occasional half-dressed husband walking along the back with a cup of coffee or something or other, and all this sort of thing. It happens all the time. And so, yeah, life is just different. And we are at an institute trying to figure out what to do about our office at the moment, because it's sitting there. We didn't even get a chance to put mothballs in it, but it's sitting there. It's smelling a bit musty. Incidentally, we went in, well, I didn't, but somebody went in earlier this week, and we found loads of posts there with checks and various other things in there. We're not going into the office anymore, or at least, only occasionally. Can you please give us a call and pay on a credit card, or send us your money, or whatever it is? And if you've got an application, photograph it, scan it, do something, but send it to us. Now, if you think you've sent something in and you haven't heard from us, it could be because it's sitting there, or we've only just picked it up. We had a mountain of posts there. So just get in touch and do that. But please don't send us anything by post if you can possibly avoid it. However, if you want things sent by post, like textbooks or something like that, we are still arranging for that. Our textbook supplier is fine. We can sort that out. The request should become electronically or over the phone, and then we will send it out to you by post. And they're going out once a week at the moment, and that seems to be working extremely well. Lots of people buying those. Obviously want to do a bit during their time. Jackie, you've obviously just read something funny.
Yeah, Joanne Crompton's just come back and said, Gary, which branch member are the half-dressed men at asking for a friend? Love it.
Yeah. Well,
Joanne.
I'm not saying anything. I mean, it's we had June and I went to the North Yorkshire meeting. I can't remember now. Was it this week or last week? Time's disappearing, isn't it, at the moment? That was a really great meeting. It was nice to see some old friends again. Some people we've seen some time, and I can't say too much about it because they're up for an award, so I don't want to queer the pitch or talk about anybody really. But our branch chairs are actually doing a great deal of hard work to get everybody on. Most of them, prior to lockdown, hadn't used Zoom before, so it's a wholly new area for them. And I know when we first started, a lot were very nervous, so the team at head office went on, gave them a little bit of training, helped them through, occasionally helped sort out when things didn't work and everything else. So thanks to everybody at ICB. We are still getting a lot of telephone calls. I think the calls are being answered pretty well on time. I know one of our new recruits there, Maddie, who I've mentioned before, we've interviewed by Zoom. We've met her by Zoom, but I've not met her physically yet. She's been with us 3 months next week. She's taking the majority of calls, and she's saying that she's getting involved in some pretty lengthy conversations with some of you, but loving every minute of it, so that's great. We've also got, it's almost the 18. We've got Ima, Alina, Antonia, Maddie and Sujay, all of whom are new. And those of you who know Mike Jardine, he's one of our AML inspectors, and he does a lot of branch meetings. He's actually joined us full time as well from Monday, or joining us from Monday, so that he can spend more time doing training and working with you as our members and our practice license holders. So that's all going to plan. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new people. Unfortunately, as we bring them in through the front door, they seem to be getting COVID at the back door. So we're still not quite as replete with staff as we wanted to be. So to my 2 team members, I hope you're the only 2 that get it, which sounds mean. I'm not trying to be, but I hope you get better soon as well, because it's pretty frightening. And as I said before, I'm sort of keeping out of everybody's way at the moment. I'm not quite sure which way to play it. Hence, you can see the long hair. My hairdresser's salon had a bit of COVID a little while back, and I've never liked the idea of venturing back since. But I'm going to have to either bite the bullet or get June to take the scissors to this at some stage, because it's getting too long for comfort. But anyway,
Gary, can I just say there on the staff, members of the staff, Susan Bruland's put up a note saying, hope the staff get better soon, Gary. Send best wishes to the staff.
Thank you, Susan. That's great. I mean, we hope they do as well. We thought by locking them away, obviously nobody was going to get it, and we don't know where it's coming from or anything really. As we all say, you pass somebody in the street, you don't know whether they're going to give you something or not. Who knows? But as long as we're all careful, we'll all take notice. I wouldn't have a member of the government's job for love nor money at the moment, because whatever they do is wrong. I mean, where do you go with it? We might be working towards another lockdown. We might not be. And I know, you know, life is tough for you all at the moment. I know we try and be bright and breezy here on ICB TV. We're not ignoring the fact that some of you are finding times tough out there. We know this, but the last thing you want is us, you to tune on and Jackie and I be here crying into our beer or whatever it is. We're here to try and lift the load a little bit, which I hope we're doing. And I think there are a lot of positives. We've just got to work our way through this. And, the number of clients that have bothered to come on and say to us, your members have been absolutely brilliant. What can I do to say thank you? Well, give them a testimonial. Let do that. Let them use that somewhere. And we know you others really, but it's always nice to be told by a client that you're doing a good job. So thank you very much to that. I know we get quite a few employers actually listening into this, so that's good. And don't forget to get them to show their appreciation by raising a cup to you, and then get that out on social media. So it's hashtag raise a cup, all lowercase, raise a cup, no dashes or anything else. Then also add, please, at ICB UK, which is in capitals, and at ICB_global. So that hits everybody then, because that, bookkeepers, it's not just British ICB bookkeepers. We've got bookkeepers in 145 different countries. Everybody's struggling. And I just wanted to just say a few words about Azerbaijan. I mean, we've got members in Azerbaijan, and unfortunately at the moment, they're having to cope with COVID and bombs. I mean, it is horrendous what they're going through there at the moment. I spoke to Naraya, who is our manager out there at the moment. She was saying that she's got relatives who are on the front line, and it's worrying them, and it's very frightening. So, yeah, we find it difficult to understand this, and it's not long since we had similar problems with our team out in the Ukraine. And I was talking to Henry Ong, who's our CEO from the Philippines, on Monday, and it's not long since he and I were having discussions with his office falling apart because of the hurricane. It was just incredible. So there's a lot going on in this world, and the bookkeepers are fighting their way through all of it. And, I think in my article, which is going in this month's newsletter, I've called you magnificent. It's not an exaggeration. It is absolute praise for you all, and you're wonderful. Please keep it up. And also, I think I've said, look, if there's something else you think we could do for you to make life easier, to help you, if it's within our power, we'll do what we can.
Okay, a couple of questions, Gary, if I can just come up with these. Sean has come in. Hi, Sean. This is on the £150 tax-free allowance for Christmas parties. Sean says, consider giving the staff Christmas party money to the local food bank, as several of my clients are thinking about. Well, that's quite a nice one, because then you can claim that back anyway. A slightly more serious one here from Alison Bradley. One of my clients has received a letter from HMRC saying they've overclaimed on their CJRS grant and it needs paying back. We don't believe this is the case. None of my other clients has had a letter, and I've calculated them all on the same basis. So something has clearly flagged up on the HMRC system. However, when I rang, they couldn't give me an indication what the issue is or what it related to. Alison, I will follow this up with my contact at HMRC, because the last meeting I was on about 10 days ago, they were saying that when the letters are coming out to ask you to check your claims, just to go back and say you checked and everything's fine, and that should be the end of it. I'm not aware of what happens with an actual repayment demand. So, Alison, I will follow that up, and I will come back to you on that one. And I like this one. Steph B says, Gary, if you let June loose on your hair, perhaps you should do it live on Zoom and do it for charity.
Oh,
I say
right.
no.
Yeah. I'm not quite going skinhead yet, but anyway, yeah. We'll...
And
actually, when I met you, my hair was longer than this, so it shows you how long ago that was.
And one on the chat line. Can you tell me how we claim back the working at home allowance on a tax return? If you're self-employed and you do a tax return that way, then you can claim it back through your normal self-assessment tax return. You just put it down as one of your expenses. However, if you are employed, there is a special claim line, and you find that on HMRC. You log into your personal tax account and you can actually claim it back. And there are a load of questions to go through. And if you're claiming the fixed allowance of £6, you put that in and claim it. You don't need any receipts for that. This is if your employer is not paying you the £6 allowance, and you'll get that back through your tax code. And if you've had to buy any other equipment because you're working from home due to COVID, then you can claim that back. But if it's in addition to the £6 a week, then you have to have receipts for it. And then what happens, and I know this for a fact, that within about 10 days of putting the claim in, you will get a notification from HMRC that they've changed your tax code accordingly. And however, you've worked at home, however long or how little you've worked at home, for the current tax year, you will get the allowance from the beginning of April right through to the 5th of April next year. So you can put one claim in. If you need to change it at all, it's slightly more complex, but the actual initial claim is very, very straightforward to do.
I don't
and
mention
Andy
this one from
asked,
Sarah.
yeah, can I just come back, because this is based, this comes in answer to Alison's. Andy has come back and said, beware, some of the letters are scams and not from HMRC. Check if the client's UTR is correct. Thank you, Andy. Alison, I will get back to you individually on that one, and we'll see if we can get that one sorted out with you.
Right. I said, don't know if you've mentioned this one, but we've got one from Sarah Douglas here who says, congratulations to everyone who did not quite make the Lucas this year. This is why these awards are so respected. Yeah, we have a lot of members all doing good things. We do have to narrow it down. That's the idea of the awards. And I've said many times on here that Sarah did get a nominated badge a couple of times, not quite making the #1, but she has always said that even being nominated was great for her and great for her company. And everybody the same. There will be a few of you feeling very sad, unfortunately, when we come to announce and you are one of the runners-up. But being a runners-up, when you look at the people that we have got in ICB and the people that are around you and your peers and the people you meet everywhere, you are in great company, and it's not easy to be held out as being one of the best. I
think we've either answered them or I've left a couple of questions open that I need to follow up on, and I think we've covered everything on the chat line, Gary.
Right, yeah, I think we have. It's just gone 3, so we've done an hour. And I think a lot of people, having heard that they've now been nominated, they've gone off to have an excited drink of bubbly or something or other, which is good. Really, that's it, I think. Please remember about conference. If you want to find out more about conference, the best thing to do, we've got a separate website for it so that you don't have to plow through the whole website to get to it. And that is Bookkeepers Summit, as one word, bookkeeperssummit.com. And that will give you lots of information. You can get that on your phone as well. It's phone friendly. It will give you a list of the speakers. We've got some really high-flying speakers, television personalities, all sorts of things on there, and quite a lot yet to be announced, we're still negotiating with and trying to get the times and etc. I've looked at the platform. Most people that have looked at this platform have said it's fantastic. It took us a long time to find it, and so I think it should work out well. I think it should be the best thing that we can do under the circumstances. And, we're not quite sure. We obviously celebrate our 25th anniversary on the 1st of November next year. So this year, as from Sunday, we're into our 25th year. So we're really proud of that. We'll be doing things throughout the year. And I think what we might have to do is spread things across the whole of the year, but we'll still do something very big on the anniversary. So keep your diaries free for next year. For November, we'll do something. And I think it's going to be pretty special. We're planning all sorts at the moment, as much as any of us can plan anything. But yeah, we'll do something, because I just want this all to get through for many reasons. But one minor reason, I'd like to meet you all again. It'd be good to see you, and much as it's been nice to see your sitting rooms and or sheds in the garden or whatever it might be. And one lady last week had to leave our branch meeting because she was nipping very quickly to the loo. So all these things that we see that we've not seen before have been very interesting. But it would be lovely to see your faces again and to be standing up in front of you and banging our ICB drum. So I hope you all have a good weekend. Don't get too carried away with Halloween. Tricking and treating and all the rest, because I gather lots of people are still doing that. It is 1st of November on Sunday, and it's countdown to Christmas. It's just unbelievable. What's that? That must be 6 weeks, 7 weeks, is it?
Yeah.
It's probably 7 weeks today, isn't it? Just where has the year gone? There's a lovely quote actually on, I think it was on one of the social media things, which said, how many of us 5 years ago, if asked, where would you like to be in 5 years' time, would have said this? And I don't think any of us would, but it's that silly question that gets asked so many times as an interview. So have a good weekend, everybody. Jackie, congratulations on your nomination, and congratulations
everyone else.
And,
I have to say thank you, anyone who nominated us all. So yeah, especially the ones that were nominated. Thank you.
Yeah, and the little statuette of Luca will be wending its way around, and rather than it all come out in London, it'll be sent to homes and various other places. And the pack is on its way, and I don't know what's in it, but all that sort of stuff, etc. We'll be updating you as we go along. Bye for now, as they say. See you all next week. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Jackie, nice to see you again. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Take care.
We've got good to tell everybody next week.
Hope so. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.